And this is how it's made. It's Goulla at 3 House Sound in San Marcos. This is how I made Elevated. Let's get it. So I actually made 2 beats this day. One was the elevated beat, and one was the beat that ended up being Blase Blah. 2 totally different vibes as far as what instrumentation went into it. But man, it was a special day because both those songs just turned out fire. So for this one, I was getting a lot of funk inspiration, PHONK. So I really wanted to use those cowbells. But there's a couple funk elements that I wanted to kind of steer away from and give it my own vibe. But anywho, here's the just the cowbells. If you notice, there's a lot of kind of like bouncy, sort of low mid frequencies, so I cut those out. Also compressed it a little bit, added some reverb just to kind of weten it up. Pause. Added some tape distortion and some looperator. Now the setting for the looperator is really what made this, because there's a tape stop at the end. It just gives a little bit extra movement throughout it. So here's what it sounds like with all the effects. And then the RC20 that I used for the tape distortion, it was literally the first preset. Like when you load it up, RC20, it's the Vinyl 1 preset, and all it did was just turn down a little bit of the noise. It was just hissing a little bit too much. Then I added some Pancake, which is just a pan filter, so I get a little bit more movement again, like I said. The next thing I added was the infamous vocal chop by DJ Paul. I'm not gonna tell you where it's from. We're not sample snitching, but if you know, you know. And the funny thing about this, it's not even in key. I didn't know that at the time. It just kind of felt right. I didn't even bother like switching it. I just kind of ran with it. So here's what it sounds like.
Wishers full of that dank. Fool quit hawking that ass. Trick does it my hate.
So all I did was EQ a little bit of that natural distortion that I had in it, because it's completely different kind of tape recording that they did back in the day. So I tried to cut some of that out, modernize it a little bit by compressing it, and then added some reverb, and again the Pancake just to add some more movement to it. So here's what it sounds like with the effects and the cowbells. This little stutter right here is my favorite part. So the next thing I added was just 2 little atmospheric sounds from Analog Lab. I knew it needed something, not necessarily to hear, but just to kind of feel, give it that underlying like vibe to it. So they're 2 ARPs. The first preset was called the Pitch Up preset. It's literally a stock one. I didn't pay anything for this. It comes with Analog Lab if you want to use it. And the second one was called Mysterious Sequence. Both of those are just playing one note, not doing anything crazy to it. Again, just to kind of help fill it out a little bit. Here's what it sounds like with just the atmospheric sounds. Kind of sounds like a bomb, like dropping a little bit. Then here's the other one. Completely changed the vibe of the whole melody. It's one of those things where you probably wouldn't notice unless I pointed it out to you, but now you probably can't unhear it. It's just one of those things. So here's what it sounds like with everything. Now, once I had all the melodics, I moved on to the drums. I really wanted to establish the rhythm, and I wanted it to be as simple as possible without being boring. So to do that, I just added a couple different hi-hats, keeping the same kind of rhythm to it, but just changing out the sound and the sonics of it. So first I started out with this hi-hat. It's kind of a dusty one. It's from the song Devil in a New Dress by Kanye West. And this just kind of set the tone before the drop. Added a slight delay on it. And then when the drop happened, I changed it out for this more modern sounding hat. It's actually from a 3-6 Mafia pack to kind of keep that same vibe that we had with the vocal chop. Keeping the same pattern, here's what it sounds like. Now, I did add a third one for the second half of the chorus. And this kind of acted like an open hat just because of like the natural distortion that it had. Next, I added these snares. The first one is from the song called Power by Kanye West. Nice, dirty, crunchy snare. And then I also added another one from a 3-6 pack to keep that same vibe. Together, layered, sounds like this. Next, I added these open hats. A little stutter at the end, little roll to kind of let you know a new section's coming. We're wrapping this up. So now for the low end, we added this kick, a simple spins 808 with literally a stock distortion on it. Nothing too crazy. I forgot this plugin even existed. It's funny, I made this beat like probably over a year ago. This is probably a master plugin now that I think about it, but it did the job. It did the job. Rolled off some of the low end. So here's what the kick and the 808 sound like together. And the last thing I added was just this bass. It's kind of this little analog bass. It's playing at the end of that 3-hit. So the last thing I added was this little snare at the end here to give it that kind of a little bit of a trap element to it. A good rule of thumb when you're making your drums too, if you play it without the melody and it's riding, you can rap along to it. That's how you know they're doing their thing and they're holding up their weight. So what I did for the verse, I took out those trap hi-hats and just left those open hat sounding hi-hats, and actually took some of them away to simplify it even more. So here's what it sounds like. So last but not least, I added these transition effects and then the infamous Charlemagne beat tag.
Yo, what up, Goulla?
So all together, here we go from the top.
Yo, what up, Goulla?
So I knew whoever got on this beat had to bring the energy to really kind of match that vibe. I didn't want anything juxtaposed. I wanted to literally ride the same emotion that this beat was giving off. I knew Khali would hold his weight on this. I tried to come as, yeah, man. I knew whoever got on this beat needed to bring the energy. And we did exactly that. I thought it turned out great. My favorite thing about it was how spontaneous and organic it came about. I sent this beat and the same beat I sent that day to him and Victor Pope. They each got on the opposite one, so it worked out perfectly. It was like it was meant to be, and the rest is history, really. So that was how it was made. You can stream the song Elevated off the album The Best You Never Heard Of on Apple Music, Spotify. You can stream the video now on YouTube. Shout out Quantum. Appreciate it.